Alex, you back? Who is Alex Alonso? That's a great question. That's a great question. Actually, let me ask him that before he comes back. Yeah, I think you are the only one. Alex, you there? I think Alex is. There we go. I got you again, Alex. Let me see. Kick that guy. All right, you got the Wi-Fi back going?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It's one of those like 1 minute drops or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. It happens to all of us. But you know what? Yeah, somebody asked a question. I want to get that. Who is Alex Alonso? Alex, let the people know who you are.
Well, I started doing some of this. I guess we're calling it content creation like 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, I'm the very first person ever to bring any sort of gang information about Los Angeles to the internet. Back in the 1990s, when I created StreetGangs.com, I was a senior at the University of Southern California, and my assignment was to create a website. So that birthed the first gang website ever on the internet. And also, I went to grad school studying gangs. I got a master's degree in um, environmental studies, where I I got a bachelor's degree in environmental studies, a master's degree in geography, and I've been studying gangs ever since. I'm also a court-appointed gang expert, where I work for the defense, and I'm published, and most importantly, I'm a father of 3 kids.
That's right. And there's some people that don't understand that about you, Alex. Somebody was saying, "Am I the only one that thinks Alex is suspect?" You work for the defense when you go to the courts, yes?
I do. I get hired by the defense, but one time a prosecutor called me, and I got this call. It was about 2 or 3 years ago. I got a call from a prosecutor, and the prosecutor said, "I know you don't take any cases from the prosecution." And I said, "Yeah, that's true, ma'am." And she said, "Hear me out though before you make a decision." So I heard her out, and she says, "I'm prosecuting an LAPD officer who was off duty and killed a gang member in the parking lot of a club in Pomona." And that's all she had to say. And I told her that I was in. So one time, a prosecutor did call me up, and it was that particular case.
Very cool. Very cool. Hold on, let me see. No, you're on. You're on. Can't hear anything. Wait a minute. I can hear him just fine. Seriously, people? Sound is good. No, sound is good. We got people lying over here. Okay. So let's just get right into this case. What is Eric Holder's defense in this whole murder trial?
Well, when the defense attorney did his opening statements last week, he first thing he said was, "My client." He pointed to him over there, sitting down behind the bench, said he shot and killed Nipsey Hussle on March 31st, 2019. But he said this is a case of heat of passion case. And he is trying to convince the jury that Eric Holder became so triggered by this snitch slash paperwork conversation that he had with Nipsey Hussle in that parking lot. That's the reason why he came back and killed him 9 minutes later, approximately.
Now, have they ever even tried to offer this guy a deal as of now? Do you know? Did they try that like, during this whole time that you've been going in and out of court?
I haven't heard of any deal offered at all. And plus, what kind of deal can you give a man? He's charged with first-degree murder,
Right.
and then he's also charged with 2 first-degree attempted murders. So those carry about 25 plus 30. That's 55 to life. So I don't even think a deal was ever on the table. At least I haven't came aware of it. But if there was a deal, what kind of deal do you give a man that's looking at 55 years to life in prison?
Well, some of those guys will take 25 to life and think they won.
I think if he was offered 25 to life, he might have taken it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But the manslaughter carries no life sentence,
Right.
and the max on that is 11 years. But we're not sure how convinced the jury is going to be on the manslaughter.
Now, where do the other 2 attempted murders come from? Because I know Nipsey obviously was shot and killed. Is there anybody else that shot?
Yeah, a guy named Carrie Latham, who was named Cousin Carrie, he was just released from prison a few months before that happened in 2018.
That's right.
He got shot in the back. And then also his nephew, Shermai Villanueva, he was grazed He was grazed with a bullet, so they're charging a first-degree attempted murder on him as well.
Now, who have been like the most interesting witnesses as of yet to you?
Well,
If you start breaking it down from the beginning.
I'd say the two most interesting witnesses so far is the female driver. Her name is Bernita Nicholson, and then of course, Cowboy Herman Douglas. Those two witnesses right there tell the whole story.
Now, Bernita, was she ever charged, or was anybody else charged with the murders, or just him? Just
Only
Eric.
Eric Holder was charged. They investigated Bernita for many, many hours. She gave a 4.5 to 5 hour interrogation with the LAPD without any attorney present. And they also searched her car. They searched her apartment. They searched her mama's apartment. They did a data dump on her cell phone. And they pretty much cleared her of any wrongdoing, that she was just happened to be with him that day and had nothing to do with the homicide.
Now, in her case, is she like in any way, shape, or form related to the '60s hood? Because now she's in a place where she's, I mean, for lack of a better word, snitching on her own homie. No.
No, she's not. She's not connected to gang life whatsoever.
Okay.
She is employed as a caregiver. She works for an agency where she does caregiving, and then she's also a Lyft driver. She's also a college graduate, and she currently lives in Long Beach, and she has no connection to gang life whatsoever. She is what we would call 100% civilian.
Now, was she dating Eric Holder or something, or like messing around with the guy?
Well, she met Eric Holder, I believe that was February 25th, which would just be a little over a month before he killed Nipsey, and they met during a Lyft drive. She actually picked him up from Seal Beach and drove him to Long Beach, where he was staying at the time. And just by coincidence, she lives in Long Beach. So they kind of hit it off in that Lyft drive, and they exchanged information and started seeing each other every day since.
Oh man. And was because right now Eric he's not being held in general population, right?
Well, he's got the yellow tops, blue bottoms.
Okay.
There's actually a guy that did a rap song years ago, yellow top, blue bottoms. For those who've been in the county jail, that means you're a patient, basically. I guess in the psychiatric section of the LA County Jail. So you're kind of isolated, but there are a lot of people there. It's sort of like dorm living with other yellow tops, blue bottoms. So he's not completely isolated, but he's housed with those guys.
Now, has he, or did he ever hint that he was trying to go like he was a insanity plea?
Not that I know of. His previous attorney, Lowen Young, who is now a judge in Compton, I'm not sure what her strategy was going to be, but the current attorney that Eric Holder has that's defending him, he kind of got on the case about a year ago. I've never heard of anything about insanity, and plus there's no insanity evidence. There's nothing that suggests. I mean, he might be suffering from mental illness. I'm not taking mental illness away from anybody, but legally, insanity has to have a higher standard of evidence, meaning you got to be out there, like there's got to be videotapes of you and running in the streets naked, or you have to be like, violent, unpredictable violence on people, and he has no history of that.
But he's definitely on some kind of meds or something since he's in that part of the facility, right?
You have to be taking meds if you're in that part of the facility. Yeah, a lot of people have speculated he's been taking what's called Seroquels, which are pretty popular in the LA County Jail.
Okay, so let's get talking to what happened with the case. Let's get what was the female's version, the driver, of exactly what happened that day. Take us to the day where she picked him up.
All right, so she's doing her Lyft driving that day, and she said she received a bunch of phone calls from Eric Holder that day, and she didn't answer his phone call for a while. Then eventually she answers it, and he says, "Hey, I want to hang out. Let's go get something to eat." So she decides to end her Lyft driving a little earlier that day, and she ends up picking him up from Long Beach. They have plans to go to In-N-Out. Then they have plans to go to the Slauson Swap Meet, which is in LA on Slauson, and they just end up driving around. This is something that they have done probably at least a dozen times since they've known each other in the last month, where she picks him up, they go hanging out somewhere in LA, Hollywood, the beach. So this was another date, according to her. They were just going to go hang out. And then they ended up pulling up into the Marathon store parking lot, and they see Nipsey Hussle standing right there talking to two other guys. She immediately recognizes Nipsey Hussle, and she's amazed. She's like, "Oh, wow, Nipsey Hussle. Oh, man, he's so fine. I want to take a picture with him." And what's interesting, during her recognizing Nipsey Hussle, Eric Holder never says to her, "Oh, yeah, I know him," or "That's the homie," or "Let me go introduce you to him." He stays quiet the whole time. So she had no knowledge that he even knew him until she sees him. So, well, let me say, they pull into the parking lot. They try to park. There's no parking. And then he jumps out and goes to the Master Burger. He's in there ordering. They show surveillance video of him walking into the Master Burger, no shirt on. And then after he makes his order, he walks back out to where Nipsey Hussle's at with Cowboy and Rimpaw. And then that's when she notices, that's when Bernita sees Eric Holder is over there with Nip. And then in the video shows her jump out the car because she's like, "Oh, shoot, he's about to go get a picture with Nip. I want to go get a picture too." So that's the first part of when they first came to the Marathon store.
And at this point, she didn't hear them arguing, having any words that kind of told her, "Hey, something's going on here." She still thought everything was cool.
Well, when she gets out the car and walks over to where they're at, then she overhears this conversation. She's only there for 53 seconds. This entire conversation between Eric Holder and Nipsey Hussle lasted about 4 minutes. So she's got a small part of this conversation. So when she goes over there to take the photo with Nipsey, she does hear the snitching conversation. She hears the word snitch. She sees that there's some tension here. And she asked if she could take a picture. She said, "Can I take a picture with Nip?" And they say, "Give us a minute. Wait till he's finished talking." And then she does take a picture. They show that photo as an exhibit of her and Nipsey Hussle together.
All right. Was this also the picture there? Was that her kid on that one? Do you know if what's one of the last pictures they took also?
That's one of the last pictures he took. And the one that Bernita took with Nip happened moments before that. The reason why, if you can go back to that,
Yeah,
I can tell you why this picture is after Bernita. You see that beige jacket right there?
Yes.
On the left side. That's Carrie Latham standing right there with the beige jacket to the left side. He shows up a few minutes after Bernita walks away. So we know that picture is probably one of the last ones, not Bernita's picture.
And now Carrie Latham, is that one of their homies? Nipsey's
Yes,
homies?
he's an OG from Rolling 60. Nip had never met him because, well, Nip had never knew him because he went to prison for murder back in '96. So he was released in 2018. So I don't know if Nip met him before that day, but Nip didn't grow up with him. He had been in prison all those years.
But was that the guy he was trying to hook up and help out?
Definitely. He was trying to give him some clothes, give him some shirts and things of that sort. And he was only there for less than 5 minutes before the shooting started.
So this guy just got out of prison doing all that time. He's coming here to Nipsey, and all of a sudden he's caught himself in another situation where somebody gets killed and he almost gets killed.
Hey man, it's a bad draw of the hand right there.
Yeah, major.
He just got out in late 2018. I think he was released maybe October, November of 2018. So he's fresh out for like what, 5 months after doing a 20-something year bid for murder. So yeah, he was just there to just get some clothes from Nipsey.
Now, was there any more like info on what that conversation was? Did Nipsey start pressing up on this guy right away, or what was it?
Well, it's really hard to characterize this conversation because Cowboy, who testified, let me say who was present for this conversation. Cowboy was standing right there, heard everything. Another guy named Rimpaw, Evan McKenzie, heard everything. So this is a conversation with them three: Nipsey Hussle, Cowboy, McKenzie, Rimpaw there when Eric Holder comes. So Bernita only gets about 53 seconds of the conversation, and that everything else we know about it comes from Cowboy. And Cowboy saying that Nipsey never called the guy a snitch. Yes, the conversation was about paperwork, but it was a very cordial, homie versus homie type conversation, nothing negative. It was like Nipsey was giving him advice, according to Cowboy. But Bernita says, nah, it was some tension. The word snitching was going back and forth. He accused Nipsey of snitching. Nipsey accused him of telling. So I think Cowboy may be downplaying the amount of tension that was taking place during this conversation, if you believe Bernita Nicholson.
Right. Yeah, I tend to go more, I mean, without even seeing it, more on her side of it, because obviously there was some kind of tension. It wasn't cordial because somebody got killed after.
Well, yeah, and plus you got to understand, Cowboy and Nipsey were very close. You know, Cowboy introduced Nipsey to the hood.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Cowboy was released from prison in 2003, and that's when he met Nipsey Hussle. And at that point, Nipsey was just a teenage kid in the neighborhood doing music. Right. And because of him hanging out with Cowboy, he got to meet other 60s, and then eventually, you know, he became one.
When did you meet Nipsey? Because I saw you do one. I told people they want to see Nipsey Hussle, how much of a the guy was ahead of his time. When he was a kid, he did an interview on your platform before he blew up, and he was still speaking the way he does.
Yeah, I met Nipsey in 2007 through Kev Mack. I was hanging out with Kev Mack at a smoke shop that he had on Slauson. And in 2007, I believe this was. And then this tall, skinny kid walks in one day, and you know, he's all banged out, man. You know, he's got the braids, he's got the khakis. You could tell he's fully with it.
He with it. Yeah.
And I got to chopping it up with him. He had a CD out called Bullets Ain't Got No Name. He gave me a CD, and I kept in touch with him. Actually, I wanted to interview him in 2007, and it didn't happen. You know, that's a whole nother story.
Right.
Why the interview didn't happen in 2007. We'll get into that another day. I'm not even sure I'll ever tell that story. But in 2009, he hits me up and says, hey, you still want to do the interview? This is 2 years later. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So the interview that everyone see on Street TV, that's from 2009. But I had already known Nip for about 2 years at that time.
That's right. So now let's get back to the case. Now the female, they get back in the car with Holder, right? Take us from there.
Okay, so after she takes her selfie picture with Nipsey, she walks back to the car by herself. Eric is still in the group. And what she does immediately while she's sitting in the car is she posts that picture that she just took with Nipsey Hussle on her Facebook page.
Right.
So then Eric Holder eventually leaves the group too, but he goes to Master Burger to get his food. He ordered some food. So he gets the food, and then he gets into the car. Eventually he gets into the car, back into the car with Bernita, and they drive off. But he tells her, go around the corner. And while they're driving all the way around the corner, they go to 58th Place, which is 1 block over from Slauson, and they come back all the way around, back to the front of the Marathon store. And Bernita testified that once they got into the front of the Marathon store, she looks over and Eric Holder's pulling a gun out and he's loading up the pistol. Now, I'm not sure if he's loading up the revolver or if he's loading up the semi-automatic. I previously stated that he was loading up the semi-automatic, but I was just speculating. But he's loading up one of his guns because we later find out he had 2.
Okay.
So she sees him loading the gun up and then pointing it out the window as if he's about to do a shooting. And she stops him and says, you're not about to do any shooting in my car. So she stops him. He complies with her. And then he says, just drive around the corner so I can eat my chili cheese fries. So they drive back around the corner. They pull into where the Fat Burger's at, and then they pull into the alley. And she testified that they just sat in the car right in the alley. So we're still in the Marathon store vicinity. So she says that he starts eating his food, and he takes about 3 or 4 portions of the chili cheese fries. And then he tells her, wait right here, I'll be right back. And he exits the car with a cup in one hand, his chili cheese fries in the other hand, and starts to walk through the alley back to where Nipsey Hussle, Cowboy, Cowboy's not there at this time, back to where Nipsey Hussle, Rimpaw, Carrie Latham is at. He walks back to that area.
And then she hears shots?
After about maybe, I don't know, not even a few seconds, I say that walk takes about 30 seconds. And then she starts to hear gunshots. She doesn't know what to think. She starts to pull off through the alley toward 58th because she's thinking to leave. She sees people running, and then immediately Eric Holder returns to the car, jumps in, and she says, "What happened out there?" And he says, "Shut up. You asked too many questions. Drive, or I'm gonna slap you." And she drives off.
So he came in real aggressive. Obviously, he had just got. Well, at the time, she had no clue, right, that it happened. But she may have known he shot, but she had no clue that this guy just literally killed Nipsey Hussle.
That's correct, because where the car was parked at was at the end of the alley towards 58th place. So there's no visual of the front of the Marathon store. You know, this is the backside of the Marathon store. So she has no idea what happened. She heard gunshots and she sees him getting in the car, and he tells her to drive off.
Where do they go?
She does.
Where did they end up going?
He asked her to drive him to his cousin's Harold's place in Long Beach. And then she drops him off there. She goes to her mom's, and then I think if I remember this correctly, she ends up taking him to her mom's place that night so he can go to sleep. He didn't have anywhere to go, and he spent the night with her at the mom's place. Or maybe what happened was he couldn't spend the night there. No, this is what happened. He spent the night once at her mom's apartment. In the morning, which was Monday, she had to go to work. And she's like, "Well, you can't stay here." So he says, "Can you get me a room somewhere?" So they drive to a motel. She uses her ID to get him a room. And then she leaves him there and she goes to work at her caregiving job. And then when she gets to work, she finds out that her car is seen at the scene of this homicide. And then I think her mom called her. She starts to get calls. And guess what? She goes to the police and she says, "Hey, I'm here because my car was seen at a homicide, and I want to come tell what I know." And the cop at the front desk sends her back home and says, "Don't believe everything you see on the news."
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. But when do they hold on? Oh, there you go. So the cop tells her to get out of there. But at this point, when did she testify when she found out? Because I'm sure when after Nipsey got shot, it was all over social media. So she had to have known something.
She knew a little bit. She knew something. And some people are going to believe she knew much more. But then also on her Facebook page, where she had that picture of Nipsey Hussle, people were leaving comments saying, "Damn, girl, you were just there before he got killed," you know. So it's not until her mother calls her up and says, "You got to go back to the police. Your car," she had this car called a Chevy Cruze, Cruze, and her car's all over the news. And her mom tells her, "Go to the police." I think her mom takes her to the police. They go together. And then at that point is when the investigation begins.
Right. But the police knew pretty quick who the suspect was, right? Because I remember his face being all over the news in a few days. Or how long did it take?
Yeah, they had him identified immediately. There really wasn't much testimony given by the other cops that testified on how they knew it was Eric Holder. And I don't think it's important because he conceded that it's him. This is, you know, in a lot of murder trials, there's always denial from the defendant. And this is one of the few cases where the defendant is saying, "I did it," you know, but it's not first-degree murder. So some evidence probably didn't come into court because he's admitting he did it.
Right. Now, how many days was he on the run before he got caught, and where did he get caught at?
He got caught like on April 2nd, and he had turned himself into this mental facility in Bellflower. And the sheriff's deputies over there, the Lakewood station deputies, got a call that Eric Holder is at this place and he wants to surrender. So the deputy that took him into custody testified that he got the call, he pulled up. Then he said while he was on his way there, they got a secondary call saying that Eric Holder now is walking outside the facility and that he wants to surrender. And he testified that he saw Eric Holder there. They drew their weapons. He complied with every command, and they took him into custody without any incident.
Now, how old was Eric Holder when he got arrested for this, and how old was Nip? Did they like know each other real good from the neighborhood?
Well, I believe they did know each other because there was testimony that Cowboy said that Rimpal said, "Oh, is that Shitty pulling into the parking lot?" When he pulls in, they say, "Is that Shitty?" I think no. Nipsey asked Rimpal, "Is that Shitty?" And Rimpal says, "Yeah, that's him." So they knew each other, but there's a 4-year age difference between them. Nipsey was born in 1985, and Shitty, I'm calling him Shitty now. Right. Eric Holder was born in 1989. So they were roughly in their, I think Nipsey was 33 when he was killed, and that would put Eric Holder at 29.
Okay, so it was when you're an adult, it's not much of an age difference, but when you're young, banging, it's quite a bit, the 4-year difference.
Yeah, that 4-year difference is the difference between you getting beat up and you beating somebody up when you're a teenager.
Yeah, pretty much, Alonso. Now,
have you ever I knew some youngsters when I was a kid that were like 14, 15. They were such a beast. They would fight 18 and 19-year-olds and win, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Now, as far as Eric, what kind of reputation did he have in the hood? Did he have love from the homies? Is there anybody who feels bad for the guy, or did they kind of just say, fuck that guy?
Well, I can't really speak on the reputation he had. I know what everyone else knows through the internet. I haven't heard anybody really speak on him except for Cowboy, and Cowboy just speaking negative on him. So I don't know. I heard that he was a shooter.
Right.
But what's interesting is that he has one conviction, one arrest is an entire life. In 2012, he got arrested for possession of a gun and possession of drugs. So in 2012, he was about 23 years old, and that is his only conviction. He pled guilty to the gun. They dropped the drug charge, and this was an arrest that happened in Marina del Rey, which is, an affluent beach community of LA. So right. That's his only arrest. Most people that are pretty active in the hood got a few adult arrests, but some people know how to, get away with things. So I don't know what his reputation is.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I would have thought he had more, more maybe some YA time under him. Maybe went to join at least once or another, but that was it. Just a gun charge.
Never been to YA that we know of. Never been to prison. He took a probation deal on that gun arrest in 2012. So pretty much this dude has never done any time that we know about. One of the witnesses for the prosecution pulled up his whole rap sheet. And I'm assuming when you pull up a rap sheet, you're pulling up everything.
Right.
Not a portion, not a part of it. And this rap sheet that this guy testified to only has one arrest, one felony conviction, and probation. So that means this guy has never done any time, whether juvenile or adult.
Never done any hard time, and he went straight to the murder box. Wow, that's pretty crazy. As far as the family, is there much presence of the family in the courtroom?
I've sat in a lot of court cases. I've worked on a lot of court cases for the defense. And in my experience doing this for now 22 years, there's always family. Sometimes there's family on both sides, the victim, the defendant. Sometimes there's family just on one side. This trial has no family on neither side whatsoever.
Really?
No family from Nipsey Hussle showed up, and Eric Holder has no family in the court either. So that is a little unusual. I was expecting some family there's usually family for the victim. I'm not surprised when defendants have no family there, but no family presence whatsoever in this trial.
Wow. Yeah, you would think at least they'd send somebody to represent. Well, maybe when the guy gets once he gets found guilty or whatnot, when the jury comes back and they find him guilty, maybe the family will show up because it's such a high-profile case.
Well, Black Sam, Nipsey Hussle's brother, did an interview for KCAL9 News with our beloved Pat Harvey, and he told her in the interview that he didn't have any plans on even coming to the trial.
Really?
Yeah.
They're just kind of washing their hands of the guy and probably just moving forward with their lives, huh?
That's correct.
Wow. That's crazy to hear. So let's talk about Cowboy and Cowboy's testimony in this trial? When did they call him up? Was he hesitant to speak, being that he's a a known gang member from the '60s? And how how is he juggling that? I mean, because there's certain people that will say, "Hey, man, that's still snitching," and there's some people say, "No, you're an older guy." So talk to me about that.
Well, right after opening statements by the prosecution and the defense, the prosecution called Herman Douglas, aka Cowboy, as their first witness. And he went on the stand, and he went on as a very cooperative witness. I've been seeing all these other witnesses coming, and you can tell when a witness does not want to be there. But Cowboy not only is a cooperative witness, he's been hanging out in the courthouse every single day since this trial started. And he's been answering all the questions to the prosecution's liking. And he addressed this issue on the stand. He even said, some will consider what I'm doing snitching, but he said he wanted to do this for Nipsey Hussle because Eric Holder did not, Nipsey Hussle did not call Eric Holder a snitch. And he wants to emphasize that Eric Holder did this for no reason in cold blood. And he doesn't care what people are saying about him. He may have underestimated the backlash that he was going to receive, but I can tell you that from what he's saying, he doesn't care.
Right, but what exactly did he testify? Just to that, to pretty much say that it didn't happen the way Eric Holder is saying, that he called him a snitch? Is that what he testified to?
Well, he said that the two main things that he really provides the prosecution is the information about that conversation that occurred between Eric Holder and Nip.
Okay.
He did indeed admit that they were talking about paperwork, but he said that Nipsey was sort of giving him advice, like, "Hey, I heard there's some paperwork going on about you, and that you need to address it. You need to clear it up. There's some rumors." According to Cowboy, Nip said, "I didn't read it. I don't know what the paperwork is, but you need to take care of that." No, the word snitching, according to Cowboy, never came out Nipsey's mouth. He never called Eric Holder a snitch, according to Cowboy. So that's one important thing that Cowboy brings to the testimony. And another one is that after the shooting happened, Cowboy is the first one at Nipsey's side. And if you look at the video, you can see Eric Holder running away. And Cowboy testified that he saw Eric Holder running away, leaving the scene. So he puts Eric Holder at the scene of the crime during the time of the crime. So it's pretty serious testimony.
Yeah, so Cowboy's testifying to the guy being there and pretty much, yeah, like you said. So, I mean, I'm not judging the guy on the street code wise. Yeah, you're going to be, it's the world we're living in now. So you're going to be considered, yeah, somebody who went and testified to court. I mean, plain and simple. There's no getting around that, right? But Cowboy's taking the more, I guess, adult approach about it. But that's the crazy part about this too, Alonso, because whatever way you chop and dice this thing, Nipsey Hussle got killed because they were in some way, shape, or form politicking, gangbanging. And they went in there talking about, "Hey, dude, you got some paperwork with you." When somebody says that, it's saying snitching. Whether Cowboy wants to admit he said snitching or not, they're talking about snitching. And obviously the lady heard snitching, so they're doing that. But now he's going to court after. So, I mean, it kind of contradicts itself, doesn't it?
Well, I agree that paperwork snitching is kind of synonymous, but I will say that when you call somebody a snitch, I think it's a slightly more triggering than if you say, "Hey, there's paperwork on you," even though they mean the same exact thing.
Right.
I think that calling someone a snitch is almost like calling them a bitch.
Yeah.
I could understand how Cowboy is trying to rationalize this testimony. But I did a video on Cowboy's testimony. I went into detail, but I'll just read you this last thing that he said in court when he was on the stand. And he's trying to explain why he decided to snitch. The attorney asked him, "So why did you decide to testify in the first place?" And Cowboy says, I wanted to clarify the snitching comments. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. If this guy, Eric Holder, was from another gang, I wouldn't be here. Whatever Eric Holder told on or snitched, He wasn't going to get death, only get beat up. Killing Nipsey Hussle is worse than snitching. If you do a foul crime and you speak on it, it's not snitching. Then Cowboy continued to say, if you call the police to help a little kid, it's not snitching. And then the attorney asked him, so you're talking about defending a foul crime? And then he said, what I'm doing now is probably considered snitching, and I might have to take a fade. So he pretty much knows the shitstorm that he's walking into, and it's clear he doesn't care.
Yeah, I hope that nothing worse comes off of this, because sometimes you get some other young guy out there, and it's almost they can have some inner beef that I won't even get into in their neighborhood over this. Somebody asked real quick, Jaden Genius, thank you for that $5 super chat. Could you ask if Eric Holder's family members were killed because of Eric killing Nip? Was there anything that happened to any of their family members?
I believe those are all internet rumors that popped up back in 2019. There's no evidence that I even looked at the Los Angeles Times homicide blog, and I looked at all the homicides that happened after, and at that time that rumor came up, and there's nothing consistent with Eric Holder's family members being killed.
Yeah, I heard after that you were exactly what you're saying. Rumors. They were saying rumors. They shot up his grandma's house. They shot up his baby mama's house. They shot everybody's house up. But yeah, like you said, nothing's been confirmed. The defense attorney, did he grill Cowboy on that comment as far as the no snitching and go back to the lady's testimony?
He did. He said that, well, isn't saying paperwork, basically what you just said, isn't saying paperwork the same as snitching? So he had him on the stand for cross-examination for quite a while. He also brought up a comment that Cowboy said on a No Jumper interview that no one had ever heard before. But apparently Cowboy said in that interview that when Eric Holder pulled into the parking lot, Nip made a comment to himself, I wonder how this is going to play out. Oh, now, remember, Cowboy testified at the grand jury 3 years ago. No mention of that. And he testified the day before this conversation in court took place on direct. He never mentioned that. So the attorney Jansen was basically saying, why didn't you ever tell us that this statement was made by Nipsey? You didn't say it on direct examination yesterday. You didn't say it in the grand jury, but now you're saying it now. So he was just trying to basically impeach him on the stand.
Right. And that's why you should stay away from doing those podcasts until the trial's over, right?
Absolutely. I believe that the prosecutor told Cowboy after he did that Instagram live to not do any more Instagram lives. And I believe he stopped doing Instagram live, but guess what? He ended up jumping on Clubhouse doing the same thing. So I'm sure the prosecutor behind the scenes is like, this Cowboy guy talks too much.
Yeah, that's the bad side of social media. People just can't hold it for a few weeks or months or years, right? Now, as far as you know, Alex, has there ever been, because I mean, you know who's got paperwork out there. Sometimes you hide it for a little bit, then you expose it. But has anybody came forward to you, emailed you, DM'd you, say, hey, man, there is paperwork on Eric Holder?
I actually did receive a message from some anonymous person giving me the names of people that if I wanted to go do the research, that I can find out whether or not Eric Holder did tell on a case. The message was basically saying that he did kind of tell, but here's information if you want to go do the research, which I haven't done. So as of now, I have no evidence that Eric Holder ever told on a case, but there is some information perhaps that if someone does some digging, might be able to find out. But as of now, I have no information that Eric Holder ever told on a case.
Okay. Now, Duke Nukem, thank you for that 199 super chat. He's asking, was he pressing people about listening to his CD? Now, I'm not sure who he's talking about. Eric Holder, this guy?
Yeah, there was in that conversation that Eric Holder and Nipsey Hussle had, Cowboy was asked, so how did that conversation end? And Eric Holder just turned the subject to a whole nother matter, and he started asking Rim Paul, Cowboy, and Nip if they heard his new CD. So the conversation, which is kind of unusual, right? We're having this, like you said, they were politicking about snitching. Then all of a sudden, Eric asked, "Hey, have you guys heard my new CD?" And everyone kind of shrugs it off. When Cowboy was on the stand, he was asked, did they ridicule him or make fun of him? And Cowboy said, "I wasn't paying attention," which I thought was really interesting because Cowboy is giving us all these details of what was said, what was heard. But when asked about the CD and his music and what the reaction was to that, he wasn't paying attention at that moment.
Selective hearing, huh?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that Eric was pressing, but I would say that he did bring it up. And I ended up going to listen to some of his music, and not that good, the music.
Right.
And some of it is really violent as well.
Do you think that Eric Holder is going to take the stand?
Someone asked me that on a live the other day, and I immediately said no, because I spoke to the defense attorney and I asked him, "How many witnesses do you have left?" And he's got 2 witnesses, but you never know what can happen between Thursday when I asked him and Tuesday when court resumes, you know.
Right.
So as of now, I would say there's a 95% chance this guy does not testify. But in order to get a jury to believe in a manslaughter, it is to your benefit as a defendant to at least get up there on the stand and try to let the jury know what your state of mind was. Meaning, they want to hear that you was enraged, that you was pissed, that you got angry when certain things were said. You know, that will definitely help him towards getting a manslaughter. But then at the same time, the prosecutor is going to destroy this guy, you know, on cross-examination. Like, if you were so angry, Eric Holder, why did you go back to the Master Burger and go get your food? You know,
Right.
I mean, there's so many things that the prosecutor would be able to do on cross-examination. So I think it is more beneficial for him to stay off the stand.
Now, you've been watching the jury. Is the jury very engaged into the whole process right now? You got a couple guys kind of falling asleep, or does it seem like they're really engaged into what's going on?
There is this one particular juror that falls asleep often. But other than that, there are 17 jurors, 5 alternates that I believe have been paying a lot of attention to the case. They're there. They're never late. Sometimes when you're, in the middle of a trial or watching a trial, we're always waiting for a juror. A juror is late in the morning. A juror is late from lunch. This juror has been very punctual and been paying a lot of attention, and just one juror nods off from time to time, which is normal. It's very normal, because sometimes this stuff gets boring. I actually nodded off. I'm sitting in the front row. I nodded off on one day, but that's my fault because I didn't get a lot of sleep that night. Not because the trial was boring, but I was on like 2 hours of sleep.
How many times did Nipsey Hussle get shot, and did Eric Holder? Because there's a grainy video they show him. It looks like he shot him. And after that, the guy actually kicked him in the head, right?
Yeah, the prosecutor on opening statements said that Nipsey Hussle was shot 10 or 11 times. Wow. I believe he's saying 10 or 11 because sometimes a bullet could re-enter you.
Right.
But we haven't got testimony from the coroner yet. Okay, and that's going to happen on Tuesday. So we'll get more details. But a lot of people can go back and read the grand jury transcript. I believe the coroner testified then. But he was shot. Eric Holder shot him between the 2 white cars that were parked there. Very, very tight area. Shot him a few times. Backs up, then walks up, shoots him again. Backs up, walks up, and then shoots him again while he's on the ground. So it was a pretty personal shooting. And then, of course, as you mentioned, when he runs past him, he kicks him in the head one time.
Yeah, no, that's pretty violent. I mean, I could see somebody, shooting somebody a couple times and taking off, but shooting that many times and still having that anger in you to kick the guy. I mean, without knowing the whole case as much as you know, to me, it just seems like straight rage, especially that's supposed to be your own homie.
Yeah, it comes off as very personal. I wouldn't call this like a gang shooting. No. This is like a personal vendetta shooting, Although there's a lot of the prosecution, they brought in a gang expert. The defense is going to bring in a gang expert. There's so much talk of gangs in this trial, but really, in my opinion, this shooting was not gang motivated. Well, you know what? To a certain degree, if you believe the snitch conversation inspired the shooting, the snitch conversation is over gang politics. So
Yes.
in a way, it is gang related, but it was very personal for Eric Holder as well.
Now, do you yourself personally believe that snitch conversation happened where the guy's saying, "Hey, man, you calling me a snitch," or do you believe the Cowboy version of it, that it wasn't that bad?
Well, I do believe that there was more tension in the conversation that Cowboy alludes to, but Cowboy may be telling the truth when he says Nipsey didn't use the word snitch, because Bernita actually testified that when she walked up to the group, she heard Eric saying, "So you calling me a snitch?" Which kind of means that he didn't directly say it, and he's trying to get Eric Holder to directly say it. So maybe Nipsey did say, "Hey, there's paperwork on you." And then Bernita says she hears Eric Holder say, "So you calling me a snitch? In other words, you're calling me a snitch."
Yeah.
But maybe Cowboy is telling the truth that Nipsey didn't use that word, but nevertheless, Eric Holder interpreted that conversation as "you calling me a snitch."
Yeah, it seems like there's definitely a lot of history between these two gentlemen, and that we'll probably never know the full account of it. And sadly, what happened was, Nipsey Hussle lost his life. And talking about that, soon after Nipsey Hussle was murdered, it seemed like there was so much love in the area. There was, like, you look at these pictures of how many people came out and put stuff at the store, and you had different. It kind of reminded me a little bit of after the, I think, 92 riots, where you had a lot of, Crips and Bloods and different gangs kind of seeming like they were going to come together for some peace. That's what at least it seemed like when Nipsey first passed away. But now it seems like we're on the complete opposite side of the aisle. Does it seem like gang violence in all those areas and even out here have gotten much worse since Nipsey Hussle died?
Well, gang violence, well, I would say all violence in LA has went up, but the truces that followed are still standing. The Florences and the East Coasters, they still have a truce.
Good.
The 60s started to have discussions with some other gangs. The Inglewood gangs are still trucing. It's just violence is just up in all the other areas. Unfortunately, there's like 900 gangs countywide in Los Angeles. So
yes,
you might, if you have a truce with about 50 gangs, that doesn't account for the 850 other gangs, that aren't involved in the truce.
For sure. Well, you're gonna go back to court tomorrow, right, Alonso?
Yeah, I'll be there in the morning at 9:30. I invite anyone and everyone to come to court because it is open, and there are a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that think there's some funny shenanigans going on.
Right.
And if you're one of those people and you're local, then there's no reason why you're not on the 9th floor listening to the testimony.
Where's the courthouse for this? In downtown?
Downtown Los Angeles on Temple Street on the 9th floor, Department 104.
Okay. So hopefully you go back in there and come back and give us more of the scoops, man. When does it seem like they're gonna have the jury take the case?
Well, tomorrow, Tuesday, they're going to have the coroner. The prosecutor still has the case, so he's going to put on the coroner. He's hoping to put on Evan McKenzie, aka Rimpaw, who was one of the guys there with Cowboy, who listened to the whole conversation, but he's in violation of a court order to show up in court last week. So unless they get him into custody, we're not sure if he's going to testify tomorrow.
Now, Rimpaw, is that the guy who got out of prison, or was that another homie that was there with him?
Another homie. Carrie Latham's the one that got out of prison.
Okay.
Rimpaw is another guy. In fact, Rimpaw is the first guy that Nipsey Hussle greets in the middle of the parking lot when they shake hands.
Okay.
So he heard the whole conversation with Eric Holder. Cowboy, Rimpaw, Nipsey, Eric Holder. Those are the four people that had this conversation. So the prosecutor and the defense want Rimpaw to come to court, kind of fill in those gaps between Cowboy and Bernita, but he does not want to testify.
Yeah, he doesn't want to, he wants nothing to do with it. But can't Rimpaw just get an attorney and say, man, I plead the fifth on everything?
Okay, well, if he pleads the fifth, guess what the judge can do at that point? That will force him to testify.
They'll give him immunity?
Grant him immunity. When you're granted immunity, you have no more Fifth Amendment privilege. So then he has to sit on the stand and answer questions or go to jail for contempt.
But I mean, but at this point, you already got the guy admitting that he did it. You already got the testimony from the female. You got testimony from Cowboy. What really are they going to gain by getting Rimpon other than just kind of either putting the guy in jail or kind of destroying his street cred or name?
I agree with you 100%, Gil. I personally don't feel like you should force a man to come testify in court against his wishes. But you know, the LAPD detective there, he doesn't care about none of that.
Right.
They already put on, let's see, I believe I counted 15 witnesses that the prosecution has already put on. And this case is about whether or not the jury is going to find him guilty of first degree, second degree, or manslaughter. So whatever Rimpon has to say, most likely he's not going to say anything. It's not going to help the jury decide this case. They're going to have to decide it with the information that they already have, unless they get Rimpon and he decides to cooperate, which I doubt, you know.
Yeah, right.
And also I want to mention that Carrie Latham was uncooperative on the stand. That's the guy that got shot also.
Okay.
And Shermai Villanueva, you could tell he was an uncooperative witness. Both of them were subpoenaed, but they showed up and did their civic duty, but they didn't answer any questions.
Right, which you can't do.
Rimpon was subpoenaed and he just decided, I'm not showing up at all.
But so now it's more like you know, it's a contest between the judge. The judge feels disrespected, and I'll get a warrant. This guy's gonna come in front of my court. Now you can't just sit there and say you're not gonna show up, right?
Well, I feel the prosecutor feels more disrespected than the judge does, because the prosecutor asked the judge, can we increase his bail amount from 50,000 to 500,000? But the judge complied, and they issued a bench warrant for Rimpon for 500,000, $500,000.
So he's LA's most wanted right now.
If that's what you want to call it, man. I think we got more serious offenders on the street that we should be worrying about than Rimpon not wanting to testify.
So we got a super chat here. Marvelous Martian, thank you for that $5 super chat, my man. Off topic, but ask Alex if how he applies his knowledge in GIS, geographic information system, as it relates to his expertise in street gangs.
When I wrote my master's thesis back in 1999, I did it on territories in LA for 4 different time periods. And I used GIS to digitize all those territories. And I also used it to compare the gang communities with other data, like census data and other data that's available on a county level, city level. So yeah, the GIS is a very powerful tool that you can use to determine certain things about the demographics of an area. So for example, through my GIS, I can tell you which is the poorest gang neighborhood in LA, which is the richest gang neighborhood in LA. I can tell you which gang neighborhoods have the lowest household income, which have the highest household income, which gang neighborhoods have the highest rate of single parents. You know, so all of that data can be dumped into a GIS, and you could do an amazing spatial analysis using that program.
Oh, great question and great answer. I got another guy coming in here. This is one of the ones that you're saying. He's a member. Mario Alvarez, thanks for that $10 super chat, my man. Allegedly, Eric Holder was paid $85K, allegedly, by Big U and the 60s to get rid of Nips because Nip refused to pay Big U in the 60s protection taxes. Have you heard those kind of rumors? There it is.
Are we going there, people?
That's where Mario's going. Yeah, there's that. There's well, that's more, you know whose fault that is more than anybody else? Wacko, homeboy. You know who Wacko is. Guys like that who go out there and put all that stuff out there to get all the drama going, and people believe the world is flat. So yeah, people do believe crazy stuff like that.
Well, my response to that is I met one of the 2 detectives on this case. Both of these detectives have like 60 years combined of police experience. Detective Washington, Cedric Washington, is a Marine Corps veteran, 27 years on the LAPD force. He loves putting people in prison. he loves putting cases, legitimate cases, I'll add, on people. So if there was any sort of evidence that are linking all these other people in the homicide of Nipsey Hussle, trust and believe Detective Cedric Washington and his partner, Everardo Amaral, they would have been putting cuffs on all these people as well.
There you go. Hey, we spoke about it off air, and I just finished going through a murder trial, my own and my family, right? And what I was amazed on was, first, it gave me much more respect towards the police officers, the detectives, the prosecution, right? But I was also thinking, how much money does each one of these murder trials? How much money does it take to make one, to actually just do the whole murder trial? Do you think?
Very expensive, because you have the judge in there, you have the prosecutor, defense attorney, you have the court reporter, then you have all the witnesses that they bring into court. Some of them are expert witnesses. The expert witnesses are getting paid. You have all the if you're in LA County, you have the sheriff's deputy in that courtroom, at least two of them all the time. While at least in the downtown LA courthouse, I have seen a couple of courthouses where there's one deputy, but if it's a murder trial, I would think, do you remember, were there two deputies in the courtroom during the trial that you were in?
With us, there was up to 5 sometimes.
Yeah. And then same thing here with Eric Holder. They got 3 or 4 deputies sometimes. So you add up all of that, it can become very costly. I would say it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not in the low millions, to prosecute a case.
Okay, let me get one last question in here, then I'm gonna let you go, Alex. Alex, thank P Dog, thanks for that super chat. Alex, you think data is 100% truth or open-minded to? Figures lie, liars figures.
Well, the data is as good as the data collector. So, you know, I'm all open to scrutinizing the data if there's a reason to scrutinize it. But you got to be able to present information that provides evidence that the data is bad. You know, census data, for example, that I just mentioned, we all know the census data is not perfect. You know, try to count a country of 340 million and get it perfect. No, it's not going to be perfect. But, you know, the census data is some hell of information in there. So we got to look at it as general. So I'm not sure if P-Dog's question is going towards the trial information or to my comment about using data. But
I think it's a little bit of both with the data with you. Hey, well, I want to thank you so much for coming on, Alonso. Hopefully you'll come on at the end of the week or maybe the beginning of next week, because I know it's 4th of July weekend. I don't know what you got going on, but I would love to hear it. But if anybody wants to hear it, because Alonso is doing updates on his YouTube channel, on his Instagram, let everybody know where they can find you, Alonso.
Street TV on YouTube, street.television on Instagram, Alex Alonso 101 on all social media platforms. And thanks for tapping in.
Oh, man, appreciate you, Alonso. And I'll catch you guys later.